What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy C2G, and in today's video we're going to be going over a build that I think is absolutely busted. A lot of people have their different opinions, but right now this build seems to be extremely strong, and that is going to be the Paladin healer build, the tanky healer build. Basically it's just a healer that wears heavy armor. So let's go ahead and jump right into it with the weapon masteries. Obviously you're going to be using a life staff here, and I've gone for the AoE approach. A lot of people will use this build right here in like PvP only. So basically if they go to war, they respec. Me personally, I don't ever respec. I've gotten through every single dungeon available right now, all the way up to Lazarus, using this PvE or PvP build, and completely ignoring the single target heal, which is Light's Embrace. So just gonna go in order here. We've got Absolved. Life steals or life staffs, light and heavy attacks no longer take mana. So when you use the life staff with just base, it's gonna take mana from your pool. When light and heavy attacking, this gets rid of that completely. Next on the list, we've got Mending Touch. Life staff's heavy attacks now removes 1 debuff when passing through an ally. This is extremely strong during PvE or PvP. Let's say you get burned by a fire staff or an ability. If I just load up my heavy attack really quickly, it completely cleanses them of that burn. And this also goes for CC. So let's say we're in war and a hammer comes and knocks your buddy and he's stunned. You just heavy attack him really quickly and he's unstunned. It's a cleanse. It has no cooldown, and it's up every, what's the cast time of a heavy attack? It's probably like 1.5 seconds, man. So this ability here, Mending Touch, is extremely strong. You're gonna want to pick this up. Going into our first ability, probably the best ability in the tree, is going to be Sacred Ground. It's a nice 10-meter diameter, 5-meter radius heal. It's just a circle, and it lasts for 15 seconds, heals for 20% of weapon damage every second. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when we get into some of these other passives, you're going to realize how strong that is. Next up, we've got Holy Ground. So when you're in this, it regenerates stamina and mana faster. When you're in this is Sacred Ground. The next up, we've got Blessed. While allies are in Sacred Ground, they are healed for 50% more from all healing. That's health potions, that's berserk, that's if you've got a hammer and you're getting lifesteal, that's if you've got the axe and you're getting lifesteal. All healing buffed by 50%. It's insane. When you heal an ally less than 50% health, the cooldowns are reduced by 10%. When you're on these flags in war, or if you're fighting a boss that has some pretty tricky mechanics, you can see some allies that are getting really low really fast, and this is just another way to help burst their health back up. This is a very burst heal build. If you see someone low, you pop all the stuff on them and they snap back up. It's insane. Next thing we're going to have is Sacred Protection. While holding a life staff, increase the amount of incoming healing to all friendlies in your group by 5%. Not much. 5% seems like a little bit, but it's just another passive that increases your healing. When you heal an ally, if their health is below 50%, heal for 30% more. And like I said, it's just getting out of hand now. If you're keeping track and keeping up with the numbers, you're getting so much healing off of people. Going down on this side now, the debuff, we've got that already. Light attacks now heal target for 20% weapon damage when passing through an ally. So this is good on its own, right? Maybe all your cooldowns are down, but that's not it. The healing doesn't stop. If you're light attacking near, let's say you have a melee who's attacking a boss. If I'm life attacking, or if I'm light attacking that boss, it's also going to splash and heal my ally. And you can also just light attack at your ally's feet. It'll also heal them, and this Revitalize plays into that very well, because when you hit a light attack, reduce all of your cooldowns by 5%. So if you're really in a pinch and you're trying to pump heals non-stop, what you will do is just throw tons of light attacks while your cooldowns are down, and it brings it up to the point where you can have your Sacred Ground down at all times. There is no downtime for that if you keep the staff out and keep hitting your autos. Next we have Enchanted Justice. When hit in battle, activate a healing aura for you and your nearby friends in a 4-meter radius, healing for 10% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. So this has a 120-second cooldown. This one's kind of meh, but if you don't have the thing procced, right, and you take damage, it's just a little heal for those who are very close to you. It's a small thing, but you could easily replace this with one of these other passives. I just have it to get this passive right here, Divine Blessing. Intensify. Heavy attacks give you increased healing by 10% for 10 seconds max. So this plays into this passive here, which I'm going to go to next, Bend Light. After a dodge, your heal's 20% more effective. So if you're in a pinch and you've got a situation where you really need to sweat your ass off and get heals down, the healing is already very strong, but there's times where, you know, you're a 5-man group who's doing like a 10-man boss, or, you know, their Zerg is pushing the point really hard and you just gotta pump your numbers up. Basically what you can do is how that plays in with Intensify here. You go onto your point, you pop all of your heals, and then you dodge back, throw a heavy attack, light attack, light attack, light attack, and then you want to heavy attack again and dodge, so you can constantly keep these what is it, an additional 30% healing. Yeah, so it plays in very well, and that extra 30% can be life or death. Our next ability that we're going to be using is not orb, Beacon. So Beacon is another AoE heal, and I like this one a lot because it can actually stick to an ally or an enemy. So let's say you've got one of your, you know, crazy battle axe players in their back line and you notice him getting pretty low. You're not there, but if you have decent aim, and I mean it is a skill shot if you're going to be using this, it's not just the auto cast thing, you can snipe your buddy, hit him with the beacon, it'll stick to him and follow him around battle. Or on the other hand, you could just hit the enemy that he's chasing down and it'll stick to that enemy, giving him heals while he's fighting them. I prefer to stick it to my friendly just because he gets that kill, he moves on, but when you kill the enemy, the beacon stays where they died. Next up, we've got Infused Light. Beacon's area is now 50% larger. It's nice, it's just a larger AoE heal. The heal's not insane, but it's enough to keep your guys alive. And then Beacon lasts 5 seconds longer. That is the next passive. We've already gone over Bend Light, the dodge roll effect. So our last ability over here is going to be Orb of Protection. Now this is where things get a little controversial. A lot of people will say, you know, instead of using that, why not use Light's Embrace? It's a single target heal. And me personally, I don't like it because it's kind of a self root. You stand very still, and if you're getting CC'd a lot, it's not going to help you. You're not going to be able to cast it off. So I find that just AoE healing, and those guys who get really low, or maybe they, you know, miss a mechanic and they don't dodge it, they can take a health pot, get right back in their heals, and they'll be fine. Orb of Protection. It shoots out a light projectile that grants 10% Fortify for 20 seconds and heals an ally for 10% of weapon damage. It also deals a little bit of damage, and it kind of acts as an auto cancel. I'll show you guys that later here in the video when I'm going over like the, you know, how we're using the build. But it does a decent amount of damage, and you know, I like the Fortify because it's 20 seconds long. That's insane. And just having that Fortify when you're, you know, holding a point or tanking a boss, it helps a lot. Lastly, we have, if Orb of Protection hits an ally, they gain recovery. So if I shoot this, it goes through my friend and then hits the boss, they're going to recover a little bit of health too. It's a very small heal, but it helps. Everything helps, right? It's all building into each other. And lastly, this right here might be the piece of the puzzle that just puts it all together. If you have a buff, heal for 10% more. Not just a buff, but they don't specify here, but if you have multiple buffs, this heals for 10% more for each buff. So when I heavy attack someone, or where is it? There's one that's a heavy attack. Intensify. When I heavy attack someone and I get that buff, that shows up on my little status bar. So that buff counts for an extra 10%. So that turns this into 20%. When I do a light roll, that 20% now turns into 30% because I have a buff. If I fortify myself, if I'm in the splash range, so I barrel stuff my beacon, I get that fortify. That's a buff. That adds extra 10% healing. So you can see now with all of these buffs, the Sacred Ground buff for the stamina and mana recovery, all of these buffs add extra healing, and that is why the Paladin build works. So Amazon has tried to nerf heavy armor, right? If we go in and we look at how armor works, I'm categorized as heavy. You're technically, you're not supposed to heal very well, right? You want to be wearing light armor. You deal 20% bonus damage and healing. You lose that extra 20% when you're wearing heavy armor. Doesn't matter. The life staff is so insane. If you're playing it right, you're doing your dodge rolls, you're doing your heavy attacks, you're keeping up with your buffs, you're easily overcoming all of that damage or all of that lost healing in your passives and stuff. So
Before we get into some examples of this build in action and like how it works practically, I want to go over the gear and the attributes really quickly. So as you can see, I'm near end game. I'm still working on getting my gear score up. I'm sitting at about 499 right now. But taking a look, I have 302 focus and 82 con. Ideally, I would like to get my gear to where I have 300 focus and 100 con. There are ways to make up for that. Like right here, I've got a really nice constitution roll for food. So this stuffed calamari gives me 30 constitution for 35 minutes. I rarely use these. I try and keep them reserved for wars and dungeon runs and stuff like that. It just gets me up to that constitution of 100. I'm actually sitting at about 112 with the calamari and 302 focus. So the logic behind that is going to be, when we go into attributes here, every little bit of focus that I go over 300, it is going to add more weapon damage to my staff, but I really don't care about that. Sitting at 300, you're doing so much healing. Like, we went over those passives, and if you're keeping up with them, like I said, you're doing just an insane amount of healing. It is not that hard. There's no need to go over 300 focus. Your points are much more well spent trying to hit this 100 con bonus. It's going to give you more health, 10% more to be exact. And with the way this build works, your physical armor is going to be increased because you're wearing all heavy. So you're just getting a lot of health because of this 100 con. So hitting that mark is very important. And as far as focus goes, I know my stuff's a little bit all over the place, but you want to be aiming for 300, 100, and then any food you can get after that. You know, I switch between the hammer for war because the CC is insane, and the hatchet. So if you can get some strength food, that's going to help you maybe get to, like, if I could get a 31 strength food right now, right? And it helps me get to this +5 damage with melee light attacks, that would be sick. But that's for another time, another day. So that is going to be the attributes. And now let's get into some actual footage of the weapon.
Alright, so the first clip we've got here seems like I'm in a 1v1, right? And this is before level 60. Like, I don't even have my best gear on right now. But I see his buddy coming, and I'm like, oh great, I know what kind of fight this is going to be. So I throw the Sacred on my feet. And I think at this point, I kind of thought, you know, oh, this is going to be a 2v1. Maybe I get a cheeky kill here with the hammer. Not going to happen, because you'll see here very shortly his buddies come up. But right now you can see under or above my mana bar, I've got all of the buffs, right? So I'm trying to keep up these buffs, as many as I can, and light attack as much as I can while my cooldowns are down, because that's just going to allow me to keep my orb of protection up and my sacred ground up. So yeah, this is pretty much all you want to do is stand in the circles, right? Cast your abilities when they're up and just heal your ass off. The only time it gets hairy is when you're out of mana, right? This fight goes on for about 7 minutes before these guys give up. And there are multiple times where I'm like getting my ass beat, but the heals are so bursty. Like you can see, they chunk down my health bar with those axes. And it just pops right back up. So my mana's low, pop a potion, boom, and I'm back in it. And I shit you not, this fight, let's go over the clip here. This lasts so long, like so long. Eventually they just run away. It's probably like a 6 or 7 minute fight, and they just buzz off at the end of it. So this is why I would say the build is broken, because you know, it shouldn't be that hard for 5 guys who are all DPS to kill one person. I will say there's counters to the build. You know, if 2 of these guys were running a hammer and they just cleared me out of my circle, stunned me out of my circle, and they had the other battle axe guys whacking me, I'm probably dead there. But you know, a lot of meatheads are playing this game and they just want damage. Everyone runs the battle axe, and I don't know, it's pretty funny. You can you know, live through most damage in this game. Even fire staffs can't get to you. Alright, so this next clip here is in a war. Now, this is where your tankiness comes in hand. Usually in a war, I'm more of like a backline healer. I push with my guys who are rushing their backline and try and keep them alive. You don't pull a lot of heals that way. You're not going to get top numbers. You're not going to be, you know, on the leaderboards. You might if you get a couple kills in the background. But in a situation like this where we lost 2 of our flags and we kind of all are just mass defending the point here, you can really start to notice how strong this build is, because I am doing less healing than those guys who are getting the 20% extra from light armor. But you know, a healer that's dead, isn't a good healer. You get what I'm saying? So unless your healer is cracked and they're good at, you know, self-preservation, they can get out of any trouble they're in, then you know, they're gonna be dead. They're not gonna be keeping their heals up. Whereas me, I can just stand on that freaking point as a tanky boy and constantly have my heals pumped out, because there is pretty much no cooldown as long as I'm autoing the enemy. Also, you can see here I'm pulling out the hammer and I'm getting a little active, trying to help out the boys with some CC and help them secure more kills that way. So let's go to the end here. And y'all see this was a fairly early on war, but where is it? There we go. Look at this. I'm Craig here, Craig 2Gs, and popped 20 kills, 7 deaths with 1,000,000 healing. So if we go over to the healing numbers, which I believe I do. So right here, 1,000,000 heals. Next closest is a healer who's also one of my friends, is in our guild, and she popped off for like 844k. The build, you know, you do reduced healing, but you live longer. So if you're on that main Zerg and you're just keeping yourself alive, you're popping heals constantly, you're gonna pump out insane numbers, more so than a user who is just wearing light armor and stuff like that. Alright fellas, and that's going to do it for this video. I hope this one helped you out a little bit if you're trying to be a healer, or you want to know how there's healers out there who are 1v6ing everybody. This has been something that not a lot of people are doing on my server, but enough people are doing it to where it's like people are starting to get annoyed, and they're like, you know, I think this is broken. Healers should not be able to tank this, and you know, there is something to be said about that. I do think Amazon will nerf this build, so if you want to have some fun or do you want to take advantage of it as a healer, I would use it right now while you still can, because Amazon has already said when they nerfed healing in the open beta patch notes, they literally said verbatim they want the best healers to be wearing light armor. That is not the case with this release, and I think there will definitely be some changes coming. So subscribe to this channel. I'm going to keep you guys updated. I'm a healer main, but I've got a lot of company members who are helping me out with other builds. I'll be dropping guides to that stuff, and yeah, take advantage of this build while you can. Subscribe, like the video, and I hope you guys have a great rest of y'all's day. Peace.